Like it or not, streaming is here to stay. When even the most old-school hi-fi brands like Macintosh and ROTEL are incorporating it, you can only deny it for so long. ROTEL's newest, the RAS-5000, is actually the brand's second attempt at a digital stereo streaming amplifier. Now, visually, the 5000 is very reminiscent of ROTEL's wildly popular 1592 Mark II integrated amplifier. The 5000 silver face has a full color screen for displaying, album art, bit rates, and input selections. This Class AB stereo streaming amplifier is rated at 140 watts into 8 ohms and 220 watts into 4. It features built-in 32-bit ESS DACs, which is important to note considering you'll mostly be connecting digital components to this ROTEL. Compared to similar products, the 5000 is a little bit light when it comes to connections. Don't get me wrong, it has everything you'll likely need in a streaming amp, just not much more than that. There are numerous digital connections, including coaxial, optical, 2 USB inputs, a network port, and wait for it, HDMI with eARC. That last one is a huge addition. It makes the ROTEL more relevant in 2024, especially compared to the S14, which was the brand's first go-around at a streaming amplifier in 2023. Thanks to its dedicated subwoofer output, you can also use the 5000 as a centerpiece of a 2.1 home theater setup. As far as analog connections go, in addition to, say, the sub out, there's a single analog line in as well as a pair of preamp outs that enable the 5000 to act as a preamp when used with a separate, more powerful amplifier. Now, if you're really into vinyl, you can connect a turntable to the 5000's line in, so long as your player has a built-in Phono preamp or you have a dedicated Phono preamp from a third party. Wireless connections include Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, AirPlay 2, and Chromecast. Now, it also supports Tidal and Spotify Connect, and it can work as a Roon player provided you have a Roon subscription and Roon Core already installed on your network. We've tested the 5000 on everything, from our Sonos Faber Lumina 2s, Klipsch Cornwall 4s, the KEF R11 Metas, and most recently, Focal's brand spanking new RAO Evo X #2 towers. All of the speakers worked really well and none of them caused the ROTEL any trouble. Now, setting up the ROTEL, it's pretty easy. We connected it to our 98-inch TCL TV using its HDMI connection and stream music wirelessly using our Google Home ecosystem. I also tested it with Cambridge Audio's new CXN100 streamer using both a digital connection as well as an analog one. Now, for Bluetooth and AirPlay tests, I used my iPhone 13 and MacBook Pro, and the ROTEL performed very well in all of our testing using these attached devices and methods. Now, setup flexibility is one area where the ROTEL has some limitations. You do get tone controls and balance, but if you need to tailor the ROTEL sound to your room, you're going to be out of luck. The ROTEL lets you control a few housekeeping settings, like say startup volume, signal sense, and screen dimming, but that's really about it. While a lack of adjustability and tuning may be okay for some of the brand's more, say, stripped-down integrated amps, I expected to see a lot more from a higher-end product like the 5000. Accessing your settings and controls can be done 3 ways. There are physical buttons on the unit itself. To avoid any confusion, no, the screen is not a touchscreen. It does come with a remote, and last up, there is the ROTEL app. We adjusted the volume 99% of the time using our Apple TV remote, which can control the ROTEL thanks to CEC. Truthfully, with so little to set up or adjust, the ROTEL is pretty much a plug-and-play device. Before we get to sound quality, I'm going to let you in on a secret. We had the opportunity to test ROTEL's S14 streaming amp last year, and I sent it back. In my opinion, the S14 was not competitive at its price, and the sound, well, wasn't very ROTEL-like. I was a little worried the 5000 might leave me a bit underwhelmed, but as soon as I powered it up, those worries were gone. Because this is a great sounding amplifier, full stop. It has all of the power and control and confidence that I have come to expect from ROTEL. And I have to start with the bass because the 5000, like all good ROTEL amps, hits the low notes just right. No matter which speaker we use, the ROTEL brought the best out of their low end. The bass is controlled and incredibly textural. Well-recorded kick drums, double bass, or just even explosions are handled with the finesse needed to recreate every note and nuance. While I won't go so far as to say the ROTEL extracts, more bass from a speaker, you do get a sensation of better, more appreciable bass even without a subwoofer. And speaking of subs, I tested the ROTEL sub out using the Klipsch SPL100 and it does work. But since you're doing all of the bass management on the sub itself, because keep in mind the ROTEL doesn't have any internal bass management, this is a feature that I just didn't spend a lot of time on. Moving on to the mid-range and treble, the ROTEL is very neutral. but the 5000's exceptional dynamic contrast at all volumes may leave at least a handful of you thinking the amp is more forward than neutral. It's not, but I can understand if you're going to feel that way. Keep in mind, there is a difference between tonal brightness and dynamic presence. Tonally, the ROTEL is neutral through and through with zero perceivable coloration from the amp itself. Much like the bass, tonally, the ROTEL is controlled and detailed no matter what type of music you listen to. So don't be afraid to take the ROTEL for a spin with your favorite rock, jazz, or classical music, or even the occasional TV show or movie. Even at high volumes, the ROTEL renders the highs without strain or glare. So if you're looking for an amp to tame or, say, change a difficult speaker's sound, look elsewhere. And given the ROTEL's excellent control, definition, and just delineation of sound, be it instrument or vocals, it is no surprise that both SOUNDSTAGE and Dynamics are excellent. The 5000's focus between the speakers carries out to the edges of the stage, provided your speakers or your room allow for good dispersion horizontally and vertically. So if your setup has been known to recreate a good SOUNDSTAGE, you may find it a bit more focused with the ROTEL. At a minimum, the ROTEL's not going to take anything away. Dynamics is where I feel the ROTEL surpasses other similar products, even sounding more powerful than it actually is. Its reflexes and contrast from one note to the next is truly something. I loved listening to pianists like Luna on the ROTEL, and if you've ever played a piano, you know how captivating the instrument is at dynamic subtlety. That's something that not all speaker and amp combos get really right. The ROTEL nails it. I mean, it does it perfectly, and as an amateur pianist, I would hang on to this amp for that reason alone. Sonically, I love the ROTEL, and I really appreciate its inclusion of things like Wi-Fi and Chromecast, not to mention HDMI. Since its arrival, each day has started with the ROTEL. Being able to seamlessly integrate it into our Google Home ecosystem for whole home audio control using simple voice commands has been absolutely fantastic. I really wish ROTEL had delivered more features though at this price. Now for some of you, ROTEL's basic approach, it's going to be enough. The screen is nice, it even brings back fond memories of the Name Unity Atom, but it's only a visual aid. You still have to endure some rather convoluted button commands to get anywhere in the menu tree, and that's regardless if you use the buttons on the amp or if you use the remote. Features like bass management, room correction, and EQ, not to mention a more full-featured and just, well, functional app, all are quite commonplace in 2024, but they are missing here. I have to imagine they're going to come with time at some point because I don't think ROTEL will have a choice if they want to compete in this market. On a more positive note though, their implementation of HDMI here, at least in our experience, has been nothing short of perfect. As for comparisons, let's start with some of the newer options like Yamaha's RN2000A and 1000A. The 2000A, it costs a little bit more than the ROTEL and it has a little less power, but you wouldn't necessarily think it when comparing the two head to head, which we did. The Yamaha has a more classic hi-fi style with its analog meters in lieu of a color screen, which works very well for the Yamaha, but would be really out of character for the ROTEL. Sonically, I could go either way on this one. I love both pieces, but day to day, you get a lot more for your money with the Yamaha. For example, Yamaha has multiple analog connections, including a fantastic Phono preamp built in. It has room correction and a better app, all of which make it a better value in my book. Now, compared to Yamaha's 100-watt 1000A, the ROTEL edges out a win in terms of sound quality, at least to me. However, the Yamaha's value proposition gives it a huge advantage. It comes with most of the features found on the costlier 2000A, but for almost half the price of the ROTEL. If you're looking to chase, I know that last like 10% of sonic improvement, the ROTEL's better amplifier is going to have an easier time getting you there. As for another favorite of mine, the AUDIOLAB 7000A, though it lacks the streaming capability of the ROTEL, one could argue that for under $2,000, you could easily just add a streamer to the 7000A for less and come out on top, and I can't argue with that logic. But you could also end up spending close to the same in the end. The 7000A is a great amp, but the ROTEL sound quality and extra power make it the superior product. And if you're thinking about, well, what about the 9000A? It's an equally impressive sounding amp, but it lacks some of the features of the 5000 for the same price. So in that head-to-head, I'm actually Team ROTEL. And no, I didn't forget this time. Thank you, Christy. The Marantz 40N is still a competitor in 2024. It arguably has all of the same features you're going to find in the ROTEL, with the addition of more inputs, a built-in Phono preamp, as well as a better app. Where ROTEL has the advantage is obviously in the power department, and yes, it's noticeable. Do I think existing Marantz owners should consider upgrading to the ROTEL? I wouldn't, unless you have insanely difficult to drive loudspeakers. For example, something like a Magnapan, which may have you feeling like the 40N is just a little bit underwhelming. In this instance, go ahead and check out the 5000. Obviously, the S14 is ROTEL's more affordable and similar option, but as I mentioned earlier, the S14, at least to me, it didn't sound like much of a ROTEL, never mind that it debuted without HDMI. If you're on more of a budget, I would consider pairing the A11 with a separate streamer for best sound. Looking at another ROTEL amp, the 5000 reminds me a lot of the 1592 Mark II, which you know I loved. If ROTEL has a way to trade up, you may want to give the 5000 a look, but if it were my money, I'd probably just hold on to my 1592 and find an external streamer to handle my digital music needs. The 5000 is a great sounding amp and a product I am so happy to see ROTEL make, but it has a little way to go before it's truly competitive from a feature standpoint. But for those who put sound quality above all else and who aren't impressed by too many bells and whistles, the 5000 might just be tailor-made for you. So what do you think?
I think it sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, look, for me, ROTEL has always had a sound that I really gravitate towards.
Okay.
So it wasn't a huge shock that I like this piece. We also have the new, more affordable amplifier from ROTEL.
The A11.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So being able to revisit the brand has been a lot of fun for me.
Yeah.
I love being able to watch TV with the HDMI.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, it worked flawlessly for us. So I really appreciate that. As far as speaker pairings go,
okay.
We just finished, finally, watching Flowers of the Moon. Is that what it's called?
Killers of the Flower Moon.
Or something. The Leonardo DiCaprio, Scorsese
Yeah, the
film
like
that's
6-hour movie.
nominated for everything.
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
we finally finished watching that last night, and I thought the film score sounded really good with the Focal speaker and ROTEL pairing.
Yes.
But my favorite pairing was actually the ROTEL and the Sonus Faber Lumina 2s. You all know that we've been watching the TV show The New Look, which is the drama based on Dior and Chanel's time during World War II. Anyway, there's the opening credits of that show has the score is a bunch of string instruments, and I mean, wow! Like the ROTEL on the Luminas is just. It's so great. And I actually really prefer the way that intro sounds on the Luminas than even the Focals. And like you said in your, like you said earlier, there is a better sensation of, or there is a sensation of better bass.
Yeah.
Something, we know the Lumina 2s don't have a ton of.
Yeah.
I mean, they're enough for me, but I felt like there was, the control the ROTEL had over those speakers was exceptional.
Yeah.
I mean, just talk about a fantastic combination. I want to talk a little bit about the design.
All right.
I'm a fan of ROTEL's silver chassis. I find it has a more expensive appearance. It creates a more well-built feel. I don't know. I'm a fan. But I do have to agree with you. The 5000 does look eerily similar to the 1592 Mark II. And in that regard, I would like to see them push the design envelope just a little bit more.
A little bit, yeah.
I liked seeing the artwork displayed on the screen. Although we noticed yesterday that when I was using my MacBook Air laptop and I was Bluetoothing...
AirPlay.
Airplay.
Yeah, AirPlaying.
My slip up. AirPlaying Apple Music to the ROTEL, the artwork wasn't appearing on the ROTEL screen, even though it had just been doing that with was it your phone?
Yeah, so Bluetooth and AirPlay from my phone produced artwork. AirPlay from your MacBook Air produced the AirPlay logo, no artwork. So it's not always artwork.
It still worked.
It still worked. Yeah, it still worked. Like
you still got sound.
Oh God, yeah.
The music played just fine.
Music was not the issue. But if you're like, hey, I've got this nice color screen, nice-ish color screen, I would prefer it to always show me artwork. Maybe not all the time.
I think there was a person who emailed us directly. I think it was about this ROTEL.
Yes.
And that person was having a problem. I forget what the problem was, so I'm going to let you handle that. But it was. I just know it wasn't something we were experiencing.
It was something around when I think the first time we teased that we had the 5000. Someone wrote us privately saying that they had the 5000 and when they switch between inputs or go from Bluetooth to a digital input and then back to Bluetooth, they had to like resync their phone every time or the app would crash. And I never ran into that. And I purposely pulled this email up and I tried to recreate what this customer or user or viewer, if you're watching, had experienced. I just didn't run into it. I could easily go from, say, Apple Music and an AirPlay or Bluetooth connection from the Apple app itself to the ROTEL and then launch the ROTEL, switch to streaming internet radio KCRW just fine, and then immediately go to HDMI, watch something on HDMI, and then go back to watching or go back and hit the streaming KCRW on the app. And while it wasn't like, like it didn't switch real quick, it still did it. And I didn't have to relaunch anything or restart the ROTEL. So I really tried to recreate that as best I could given the information we had. And it always worked. It was a little bit slow, but it never outright failed the way this person had informed us that that's what they ran into. So I don't know. As far as the app is concerned, it's pretty bare bones. I mean, you have almost zero control of anything outside of, say, volume and just what do you maybe want to listen to through the various streaming protocols that it supports. This is not going to be a product that you can like whole cloth, not rely on the included remote for. But again, it's really stripped down.
I don't mind these lack of features because, frankly, I probably wouldn't use them anyway. But I do wish ROTEL had included a Phono preamp and some basic internal sub management.
Yeah.
And here's why. By omitting these, ROTEL is unfortunately just handing some audiophiles something to complain about. Not that I'm saying I blame them, especially considering ROTEL's competition is already providing those things today.
Yeah, and have been for a minute.
Yeah. But I mean, I just think that there's been a shift in the overall hobby, the audience for hi-fi and home theater, where perhaps in the past, customers might have just voiced a simple disappointment.
Yeah.
The responses today just feel so much more heated, almost as if they have been personally insulted. Yeah. There just seems to be a lot more cynicism than ever in this hobby. And I know that we're not the only ones noticing it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I do. I am going to say they're aware. They're aware. And so the onus for omission is equally on them as it may also be on what they may or may not be capable of. And I'm not ROTEL. I am not specifically talking to you in this instance. I am talking about a lot of brands because I understand the world has changed very rapidly. Technology is always evolving, and it was maybe fashionable and even profitable at one time to be a more boutique brand because we were still kind of dealing with the basic digital realm and the tried and true analog one. And as long as you had an optical or a coaxial, a basic DAC in there, but you really nailed the analog section, you were golden. But in the last 5 to 6 years, there's not only been a sea change, we've gone to another planet. We're in another solar system at this point with what can be done, and done, as far as the consumer is concerned, relatively easily and inexpensively, because let's face it, everyone's rocking a supercomputer in their pocket. Brand be damned. They have something that was Star Trek times not 20 years ago. So the perception is, it's in my pocket, I have it with everything else, why don't I have it here? And a lot of people don't take the ride to go, oh, let's think about what this costs, what this entails from a manufacturer standpoint. And I'm not an apologist, because if you want to play, you got to invest in the people, the technology, and the manufacturing to play at this level. Otherwise, you are going to become extinct. You just are. So that's part of it. The other part of it is, though, is I still feel there is a prevailing wind with some of these hi-fi or higher end manufacturers where it's like, we're focused only on the cleanest possible sound. And the second we add Bluetooth, the second we add this, we add that, we're only introducing noise. BS. While technically, sure, maybe you're doing that, take all of that know-how and figure out how to fix it. Because the excuse or the explanation that we don't do these things, because that's not flying anymore. And it's leading to animosity, and it's leading to that anger that you talked about. And once the hate train gets a rolling, it doesn't want to stop. And that's the part that scares the bejesus out of me as it relates to a hobby. Is it's just like, once people have a taste for like this I can affect change, or I can, but through negativity, or I can take a brand down. You know, me and like 12 other people on a forum, we can just take it to them. I'm like, whoa, you know? And so that's alarming. That's really alarming. But at the same time, if you're coming out with a brand new product and you're trying to signal to the world, hey, ROTEL first, or blah, blah, blah first, and we've got this and we've got that, you better make sure you've got all the other little things too, so that people don't go, cash grab, you know, too much,
Yeah.
you know, and it's just like, because they're gonna miss out on what is genuinely a potentially good product. Like, I get that, say, the 5000 in terms of certain features and functionality is not competitive. However, for me, like if I didn't run a channel and I was looking for something that I could live with long term, given that I know our room, the room works for us, I know where speakers go in it, so I don't necessarily need to rely on room correction or things like that. I don't always like using a subwoofer. So bass management, that's something I would have liked to have seen though, just so that if I wanted it, you know, it's there. I don't need my streamer to support 70 different protocols because I use Apple Music or Google. So I need Chromecast, I need some Bluetooth, AirPlay. That's really about it. Internet radio, I do use that. I love that a lot. So I'm not one of these people where it's like, oh, it doesn't support these 19 esoteric streaming platforms. I don't care. I wasn't going to use them anyway. So this does work for me on an individual level. And I'm glad that I got the experience of it. And I'm glad that I got to live with it, because if I read the press release and the tech sheet, I would have been like, this is a little bit underwhelming in terms of features, but it actually ticks all the boxes for me. And I feel like that moment of pause to really sit with yourself and look at a product objectively for you as an individual, not as the horde, that is what's missing. Because the snap judgment on this, and as it would be on a lot of products, is probably kind of negative. But I'm telling you, if you listen, or if you're like me, or you're more along the lines of, he is right, I just use Bluetooth, or it supports internet radio, and that's really all I want, have at it, because this is probably one of the better all-inclusive, digital-focused streaming amplifiers on the market right now. I mean, look, we live in an era where you probably can't win for losing. So like we always say at the end of our videos, it's like, at the end of the day, the only person who has to like anything is you. So just try and keep that in mind. All right, guys, that's it. We got to get out of here. That's our review of ROTEL's brand new RAS-5000 integrated streaming amplifier. Now it's time for you to tell us what you think. Let us know down in the comments below. If you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up, like, and subscribe. Go ahead and ring that bell so that you're notified when new videos come out. If you use any of the links Christy's left for you down below, know that that's a great way you've continued to show your support for this channel and the work that we do here. And both of us thank you very, very much for doing that. Follow me on Instagram at Recovering Audiophile, and that is it. Again, for those in the back, the only person who has to like the sound of your system is you. So happy listening, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next Sunday with a brand new video. Bye. I can see the screen. Like, it is almost 3D. It's like, it feels like it's here as opposed to...
Yeah, you aren't squinting.
I'm not squinting at all.
Oh, that's good.
I can read. I hope y'all like the glasses, because this is way easier for me. Sometimes when you're like, you're missing the period, you're missing the, because I couldn't see it. All right? All right.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know I wrote it, but I couldn't see it.